There are days when the world feels like it's pressing every button you didn't even know you had. One text and your heart rate spikes. One careless word and your whole mood collapses. One delay, one rejection, one reminder of the past, and suddenly you're flooded. Sound familiar? You're not alone. But here's the truth most people don't realize. You were never meant to control the world. You were meant to control how you show up in it. Monks understand this better than anyone. They walk through chaos, not untouched, but unmoved, not because they've eliminated emotion, but because they've disciplined their reaction. The world will never stop testing you. Triggers will never stop appearing. But you can train your mind to stop taking the bait. You can build a calm that isn't dependent on silence, but thrives in the noise. You can build space between what happens and what you choose next. That space is where your power lives, not in the storm, but in the eye of it. And today, we begin building that space together, not by escaping triggers, but by facing them with breath, with clarity, and with unshakable presence. Because the goal is not to avoid life's pressure. The goal is to stop letting it break you. You don't get to choose how the world moves. You don't get to control what people say, how they act, or what they believe about you. You don't get to pause the storms that hit you without warning, or prevent the discomfort that rises inside you when things fall apart. But you do get to choose how you show up in the middle of all of it. And that choice, that quiet, personal, invisible decision, is the foundation of true discipline. Most people live their lives trying to avoid being tested. They seek comfort, predictability, agreement, and smooth waters. And when life doesn't give them that, they become reactive, defensive, disoriented. They begin to believe that peace is only possible if the world cooperates. If the people around them behave a certain way, if the environment is calm, if everything goes according to plan. But monks don't train for peace by avoiding disturbance. They train for peace by becoming still in the face of it, because they know the world will always test you. And that's not a threat, it's an invitation. Every difficult moment is a mirror. It shows you where you are still attached, still untrained, still vulnerable to being pulled out of your center. That's why monks don't run from triggers. They observe them. They allow discomfort to rise, not to punish themselves, but to build endurance. Because endurance is not just about physical stamina. It's about emotional steadiness. The ability to hold space for tension without collapsing into it. That's the calm they cultivate. Not a fragile stillness that only survives in perfect silence, but a strength that breathes evenly through chaos. You see, anyone can be calm when nothing is happening. Anyone can speak gently when everyone agrees with them. Anyone can seem spiritual when the room is quiet, the weather is perfect, and their life feels in control. But discipline is revealed in difficulty. It shows itself when you're interrupted, misunderstood, ignored, criticized, or delayed. That's when your training is tested. That's when you discover whether your peace was a performance or a practice. True calm isn't passive. It's not about withdrawing from life. It's not about pretending you don't feel anything. It's about feeling everything and choosing to stay centered anyway. Choosing to respond, not react. Choosing to pause, not pounce. Choosing to stay awake, not escape. Calm is not the absence of heat. It's the refusal to spread the fire. It's the discipline of watching the wave rise and not letting it drown your presence. This isn't easy. And it's not supposed to be. Because real discipline isn't built through comfort. It's built through challenge. Every moment that triggers you is an opportunity to train. not by fighting the trigger, but by watching your own internal response with awareness. Where does your breath go? What tension arises in your body? What story begins to replay in your mind? The monk doesn't just survive the moment, he studies it. And that self-study becomes self-mastery. That's why calm isn't luck. It's not a personality trait. It's a practice, cultivated through intention, repetition, and patience. You breathe through the urge to snap back. You ground yourself before responding. You observe the thought before you obey it. These small acts, repeated again and again, begin to form the core of your inner world. And eventually, the world stops being able to push you around, not because it changed, but because you did. Your nervous system learns. Your breath becomes familiar with pressure. Your mind begins to slow down when the noise speeds up. You start to catch yourself before you spiral. You begin to hold your own center even when everything else feels unsteady. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's discipline in its truest form. The world will always test you. That's not something to fear. It's something to welcome, because each test gives you the chance to reinforce who you are. Not who you used to be, not who your emotions want you to be in the heat of the moment, but who you are becoming through your discipline. You will still feel things. You will still get angry. You will still be hurt, disappointed, even shaken. But you'll stop being owned by those emotions. You'll stop letting them speak for you. You'll learn how to let them rise and fall without losing your center. That's what monks know. That calm isn't something they carry into the world. It's something they build in response to it. It's not a gift they're born with. It's a discipline they return to again and again, breath after breath, moment after moment. And so can you. There is a common illusion we carry through life, that control equals peace. That if we could just control our schedule, our relationships, the way people treat us, the outcomes of our choices, we'd finally be able to rest. But monks understand something much deeper. The world outside will always move beyond your control. The true work is not to control events, but to guard the entry points to your inner world. That's where your power is. Not in shaping everything that happens around you, but in choosing what you allow inside. Every moment in life presents you with a question. Will you let this enter? This comment, this emotion, this criticism, this expectation. And most people answer unconsciously. They absorb everything, carry it, dwell on it. They let words settle inside them without question. They let opinions become identity. They let negativity find a home in their inner space. But monks treat the mind like a temple, and not everything is allowed to enter the temple. They have trained themselves to pause and filter. When something difficult happens, they ask not, why did this happen? But, does this belong inside me? That's a very different way of living. It's not reactive. It's intentional. It's selective, not from a place of fear or avoidance, but from a place of clarity and self-respect. You can't stop someone from speaking harshly to you, but you can decide whether their voice becomes your internal dialogue. You can't stop every delay or disappointment, but you can decide whether it becomes frustration or fuel for focus. You can't stop life from testing you, but you can decide what enters your system. And just like a strong immune system guards the body from infection, a trained mind guards the spirit from unnecessary chaos. This is why monks build routines around inner hygiene. Not just what they do with their hands, but what they allow in through their senses. They're mindful of the words they hear, the energy they absorb, the thoughts they accept as true, because they know that not every experience deserves to shape your energy. Not every mood deserves to stay. You can experience something without letting it define you. You can notice discomfort without making it your home. This power begins with awareness. Before anything enters your system, there is a small window, a breath's length, where you have a choice. And in that moment, you either absorb unconsciously or you witness consciously. You either say, "This always happens to me," or you say, "I see what's happening, and I will choose what stays." That shift from blind reaction to conscious selection is where your training begins. Guarding your entry points doesn't mean living with walls. It means living with windows. You let in what nurtures growth. You keep out what clouds your clarity. You allow discomfort to visit, but you don't let it rearrange the furniture of your peace. You hold your space the way a monk holds a bowl, with care, with simplicity, with deep awareness of what is placed inside. This is especially important in a world of overstimulation. You wake up to a flood of input, messages, updates, images, stories, opinions. And if you're not careful, your day is shaped by all of it before you even take your first breath with intention. That's why monks begin their day in silence, not because they hate noise, but because they want to choose their first input. They want the first thing that enters their system to be deliberate. A breath, a mantra, a moment of gratitude, a decision to remain aware. You may not live in a monastery, but you can create your own boundaries. You can start your day without your phone. You can take a breath before opening a message. You can create buffers between you and the noise. And in those buffers, you'll begin to reclaim what modern life often steals from you: space. And space is not empty. Space is power. Space is where the inner world has room to process, to reflect, to decide what to keep and what to release. As you strengthen this practice, you'll notice a shift. You'll stop spiraling as easily. You'll stop reacting to every word, every mood, every shift in energy. People will still speak. Things will still happen. But inside, you'll have created something rare, a center that doesn't shake. This doesn't mean you won't feel. It means you'll stop being ruled by what you feel. You'll become the filter, not the sponge. You'll let life move, but you won't let it move you unless it's on your terms. This is not about shutting down. It's about rising up with awareness, because the real goal is not to live untouched. It's to live unshaken, not because nothing enters, but because you decide what stays. One of the greatest sources of suffering in life comes from the way we interpret what happens, not from what actually happens. A word spoken without malice still wounds. A delay feels like disrespect. A simple silence is taken as rejection. Why? Because the untrained mind personalizes everything. It attaches meaning to every action, every word, every glance. And in doing so, it builds a world filled with imagined offenses, misunderstood moments, and unnecessary pain. Monks are not immune to discomfort, but they have learned to separate stimulus from story. They experience events, but they do not instantly create narratives around them. A comment is just a comment. A look is just a look. A delay is just a delay. It is the untrained mind that says, "They meant to hurt me. I'm not respected. Something's wrong with me." That interpretation is not the truth. It is the reaction. And reactions without awareness always feel personal. Training the mind begins by creating space between what happens and what we decide it means. That space is not a void. It is a zone of power. It is the space where you breathe, reflect, question, and choose. Without that space, you live in autopilot, constantly reacting, constantly interpreting, constantly bleeding from wounds that were never even real. But the monk pauses. He witnesses the thought rising, but does not believe it immediately. He asks, is this mine? Is this true? Is this helpful? That inquiry is not weakness. It is strength rooted in clarity. The mind's habit to personalize comes from fear. Fear of being misunderstood, unloved, abandoned, or seen as not enough. So it prepares for rejection even when none exists. It creates distance even when connection is possible. It builds walls where none are needed. But monks do not let fear write their story. They let awareness edit the narrative. They train their mind to sit with the moment as it is, not as their insecurity colors it to be. Imagine this: someone walks past you and doesn't smile. The untrained mind says, did I do something wrong? Are they angry at me? What did I say yesterday? And in seconds, peace is gone. But the trained mind notices the same event and responds, maybe they're deep in thought. Maybe it has nothing to do with me. And the moment passes without becoming pain. That's the power of separating the event from the ego. This training doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop fusing every emotion with your identity. A wave of sadness doesn't mean you are broken. A moment of rejection doesn't mean you are unworthy. A criticism doesn't mean you are failing. You begin to notice what rises, and you let it pass, like watching clouds move across the sky. No need to chase them. No need to become them. Just awareness. That's the essence of monk discipline. Awareness without attachment. In relationships, this shift is life-changing. When you stop taking everything personally, you start seeing others more clearly. You realize their moods are not always about you. Their words come from their own history, their own state of mind. You stop reacting to their surface behavior and start responding from your own inner stillness. This is how monks stay peaceful in chaos, not by controlling people, but by controlling how much power they give to interpretation. You can train this too. The next time you feel offended, triggered, or rejected, pause. Before speaking, before spiraling, before assuming, breathe. Ask yourself, what did I just make this mean? And is that the only possible meaning? That moment of reflection creates space. That space gives you options. And options are freedom. This is not suppression. This is selection. You are not pushing away your feelings. You are choosing your response to them. You are not invalidating your pain. You are refusing to let it dictate your next step. The ego wants to defend, prove, protect. But the trained mind knows silence can be power, softness can be strength, and neutrality can be peace. Over time, this space between stimulus and personalization becomes your sanctuary. You stop being pulled into every storm. You stop being wounded by every wind. You start recognizing that you are not your reactions. You are the awareness behind them. And that awareness doesn't need to argue. It simply needs to observe. This shift will change your energy. People will feel it. They'll sense that you don't take bait anymore, that you listen differently, speak differently, move differently. Not because you've become detached, but because you've become deeply connected to yourself. And in that connection, there is no need to take things personally, because your worth no longer depends on external validation. It lives in the calm space you've built within. Remember, the world will say things. People will forget to text back. Comments will come that sting. Life will offer you endless chances to react. But every one of those moments is an invitation to return to your center, to breathe, to choose peace, to train the space between. And over time, that space becomes not just your practice. It becomes your identity. There is one tool that has been with you since the moment you were born, and it will stay with you until your final moment. It doesn't require equipment. It doesn't need belief. It doesn't demand perfection. And yet, it holds the power to create distance between your awareness and your reaction, between what's happening around you and what's happening inside you. That tool is your breath. Most people underestimate the power of breathing, not because it lacks strength, but because it happens automatically. And what happens automatically, we take for granted. But monks have long known what science is only beginning to confirm. The breath is not just a function of survival. It is a function of transformation. It is the gateway between your body and your mind, your thoughts and your awareness, your instinct and your intention. When chaos rises, the untrained mind races to meet it. The heart rate climbs, the voice sharpens, the body tenses, and before awareness even catches up, you're already in defense mode, saying things you didn't mean, feeling things you didn't choose, reacting in ways that don't align with your values. But the breath gives you another option. It gives you a pause, a gap, a bridge. That bridge is the place where you stop being a slave to your environment and start becoming a student of it. Monks are not calm because they are emotionless. They are calm because they've trained their breath to interrupt the loop of reactivity. They've built a habit so deep, so ingrained, that when tension rises, the body remembers what the mind might forget to return to the breath. It doesn't take long, just a few seconds, a full inhale, a full exhale. But in that cycle, your nervous system shifts, your thoughts slow, your clarity returns. The mind becomes still enough to witness instead of fight. The breath becomes a barrier between chaos and your response, not a wall to block life out, but a filter to ensure what comes in doesn't overwhelm your inner world. Most people wait for the chaos to pass so they can breathe. But monks breathe so the chaos can pass through them without taking root. They don't wait for life to calm down. They bring calm into the moment through deliberate breath. That's the difference, and it's available to you right now. Start by noticing. When a trigger appears, don't respond immediately. Observe your breath. Is it shallow? Is it rapid? Is it frozen? These are clues. Clues that your body has gone into survival mode. Clues that the reaction is building before words leave your mouth, before tension moves your muscles. Pause. Return to your breath like a monk returns to a temple, slowly, with reverence, with patience. Inhale through your nose, feel the air move through your body. Exhale through your mouth, as if you're releasing the weight of the moment. Feel your shoulders drop. Feel the noise inside begin to soften. This isn't a ritual for show. This is a ritual for reset, a ritual that brings you back to what is real this moment, this breath, this choice. The power in using breath as a barrier lies in its simplicity. You don't need to understand complex philosophy. You don't need years of training. You need one decision to practice returning. Again and again, you may forget, you may react, but every time you remember the breath, you strengthen the muscle of awareness, and that muscle becomes your shield. Monks use this not only in conflict, but in stillness. They practice conscious breathing when nothing is wrong, so that it becomes available when everything feels wrong. They don't wait for the storm to train. They prepare before it arrives. That's why their calm feels unshakable. It's not because they don't feel pressure. It's because they've trained under it. With breath, with presence, this is your invitation to do the same. Not to expect perfection, but to build repetition. Choose one moment each day to breathe with full awareness. When you wake up, before a conversation, during a task, and when chaos knocks, don't reach for control. Reach for your breath. It's always there. It doesn't judge. It doesn't rush. It simply invites you back to your center. And the more you return, the more you'll notice the world doesn't get quieter, but your mind does. People don't stop triggering you, but your body stops betraying you. Life doesn't stop happening, but your presence deepens with every breath you choose instead of reaction you follow. This is not about becoming detached. It's about becoming deeply connected to the only thing you can truly control, your inner rhythm. And the breath is the metronome of that rhythm. Let it guide you, not just in silence, but in the middle of the noise. Let it remind you that you are not the chaos. You are the calm observing it. And once you begin to live from that space, you'll stop waiting for the world to be peaceful. You'll bring peace into the world. One breath at a time. Stillness is often misunderstood. Most people see it as the absence of motion, a passive state, something that happens when everything else stops. It's what you do when you're tired, when you've run out of options, when you're left with nothing but silence. But monks see it differently. For them, stillness is not what happens at the end of effort. It is a deliberate act of mastery. It is not a reaction. It is a strategy. In a world addicted to speed, noise, and urgency, stillness becomes a form of resistance. It becomes a tool, a practice, a way of holding power without shouting, a way of seeing clearly without chasing. Monks are not still because they've given up. They are still because they have chosen a different way to engage with the moment, not by controlling it, but by meeting it without being consumed by it. Stillness is the place where the mind can breathe. It's the space where thoughts are not rushed, decisions are not forced, and emotions are not in command. Most people are pulled into movement by the world. Notifications, demands, deadlines, conversations. They wake up and start running, often without even knowing why. But when you train in stillness, you stop being led by the outside. You start listening to the inside. That's why monks spend so much time in silence, not to escape life, but to meet it more clearly. In stillness, they observe. They study the patterns of their thoughts. They witness their emotional reflexes. They begin to untangle themselves from the automatic patterns of reaction. Because when you're always moving, you're always reacting. And when you're always reacting, you're never choosing. You're surviving. Stillness disrupts that loop. Stillness gives you access to your own insight. The kind that doesn't shout but whispers. The kind that doesn't come from books, but from presence. It allows you to see without needing to fix, to listen without needing to respond, to experience without needing to control. And in doing so, it gives you back your authority. This is what people often get wrong. They wait for stillness to find them. They wait for a break in the schedule, for the noise to subside, for the weekend or vacation or perfect moment to be still. But monks don't wait for stillness. They create it, even in chaos, even when life is moving quickly, even when emotions are rising. Stillness is not dependent on what's around them. It's grounded in what's within them. And you can build this too. Start by pausing in the in-between spaces of life, the moment before you speak, the second before you reply to a message, the breath before you walk into a room. That pause, that stillness, becomes your compass. It slows your mind just enough to return to yourself. It keeps you from being swept up by the energy of others. It keeps you rooted in clarity while others react from confusion. Stillness doesn't mean you say nothing. It means what you say comes from a deeper place. It doesn't mean you do nothing. It means what you do is aligned. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It means your feelings don't dictate your every move. Stillness sharpens your action. It adds precision to your words. It reduces the noise inside you so you can better understand the noise outside of you. The modern world treats stillness like weakness. It rewards fast answers, quick moves, instant results. But monks understand that stillness is strength, because stillness allows you to see what others miss. While the world runs toward urgency, stillness helps you see what truly matters. While others are driven by the energy of the moment, stillness keeps you anchored to your principles. There's a reason every ancient tradition, from martial arts to meditation, trains in stillness, because only in stillness can you hear the truth clearly. Not the loudest voice, not the reactive emotion, but the quiet, steady presence within you that always knows. That presence doesn't rush. It doesn't beg for attention, but it speaks when you're ready to listen. Stillness also allows space for reset. When you're overwhelmed, when you've been triggered, when you've lost your way, you don't need to power through, you need to return. And stillness is the place you return to, not to punish yourself, not to withdraw, but to realign, to remember, to settle back into who you are. This is why monks practice stillness every single day, not because they need rest, but because they need clarity. Clarity is what guides right action, and stillness is the soil where clarity grows. So do not wait for stillness to arrive. Build it, practice it, protect it. Let it become your sacred pause in a world that wants to keep you in motion. Let it become your power in moments that try to pull you into chaos. Let it become your strategy, not to avoid life, but to engage it with depth. Because when you are still, you are not empty. You are full of awareness, of presence, of strength that doesn't need to be seen to be felt. And that kind of stillness changes everything. At some point, life will test you, not to break you, but to reveal you. It will place chaos around you to show you the calm within you. And when it does, you won't always have time to prepare. You'll only have what you've trained, the breath you've practiced, the space you've created, the stillness you've chosen. Again and again, when reaction felt easier, you've now seen that peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of awareness in the middle of pressure. You cannot control the world, but you can train your response to it. You can protect your attention, return to your breath, and build the space between what happens and what you do next. That space is your power. Don't wait to be untriggered. Train your mind to stay steady when things shake. Don't wait for silence. Become the silence the world forgets. Don't wait for calm to arrive. Bring it with you. Because when the world moves fast, those who've trained in stillness lead. And every breath you take in awareness is not just a pause. It's a path. The path back to your center. The path back to yourself.